Welcome again. My name is Joanne Fleming. To those of you I haven't had a chance to meet, I'm the Executive Director for Grassroots America, We the People. This organization is one of the largest constitutional conservative organizations in the state of Texas. I like to say it this way: we are a local organization with statewide influence. We have been invited to tour the state of Texas with the conservative statewide organizations that have been in place for more than 20 years. So we're 5 years old, but we've already vaulted to the state level, and we really appreciate that, and we thank the Lord for it. Now, I want to go over a couple of things here today. First of all, these are the rules of engagement for every candidate forum that we have. If you are a candidate, you will be getting a copy of these. I see some candidates in the room that we have sent an invitation to through email. If you've been so busy going door to door and you've not had a chance to check your email, you should really do that, because I need to hear back from you. As I said, next week, as Judge Baker said, next week we will have the debate here between the two candidates for the constitutional position of county judge, and that would be between the incumbent Joel Baker and the challenger Major General John Furlow. The rules of engagement are thus: candidates may sit or stand to make opening and closing statements. Candidates may use paper during the debate for note-taking. Candidates may not send or receive text during the debate, nor ask for assistance from campaign supporters or staff. Candidates may use charts, graphs, or appropriate props to help make their points during closing statements. Candidates should spend time debating the topics as posed by the moderator. Attempts to change the subject will trigger corrective action by our moderator today, Mr. Taylor Hemness of KLTV News. The format is this: the debate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement by each candidate. A coin toss has determined the order of today's opening statements, and Matt Schaefer will begin. The debate will follow a modified Lincoln Douglas format with 4 15-minute quarters. The 4 discussion questions will be posed by the moderator. Debate topics are not revealed in advance of the debate and will be presented by the moderator one at a time at the start of each debate quarter. Candidates will have 3 minutes each to close, in the reverse order of the opening statements. During the close, candidates may include a rebuttal or finish an important point they were unable to complete during the debate period. Extra time will not be allowed for candidates to trade barbs. When your 3 minutes are up, they are really up. So now, I want to explain to you about the 4 topics. The 4 topics are germane to major issues facing the state of Texas. They are not trivial little soundbite questions. They're designed to evoke from the candidates their legislative philosophy, their core principles, and how they would address the topics. Nobody expects every candidate to know every detail about every topic, but these questions are framed in a way where they can describe exactly what their position would be to solve a problem or to determine whether or not they think there is an actual problem. We have designed the questions or the topics in a way that does not lead the witness. However, the question topics do indeed have facts, source facts based within them. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Taylor Hemness. Thank you, Taylor.
Not yet. There we are. Thank you very, very much. Before we begin, I want to again thank all of you for being here today. I was not, frankly, expecting this size of crowd, and I am impressed, and I thank you all for being here today. This is the second debate that I've been able to moderate here for Grassroots America, We the People, and it's a very, very strong turnout, and I appreciate your being here today. I want to make a couple of points before we begin addressing the rules that Joanne just laid out. The perfect 15-minute quarters for each of these questions will involve me not speaking at all. That's what we're hoping for here. So during those 15-minute quarters, the candidates will speak to the audience. They may speak to each other. They can address the audience or address each other. but I will hope that I don't speak for those 15 minutes. Joanne said that I will be stepping in if need be. And fellas, I'll tell you now, just because you mention a buzzword in one question about transportation, maybe about a different topic, doesn't mean I'm going to step in. But if I get a sense that we're going too far down the road is when I will step in. So don't feel like you can't address how one topic affects another topic when it comes to state issues, but please try and keep it as close to the question as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matt now for his 2-minute opening statement.
I'm on. Thank you. Let me say it is a privilege to be in a room filled with people that I know stand for conservative principles without apology. And so it is my pleasure to be in your presence here today. Freedom is the foundation of a healthy community. The Constitution is our guiding principle. Our faith in God is our motivating factor. Renewing liberty is what's going to revitalize the economy, revitalize jobs. There are common sense conservative solutions that are within reach. Giving more resources and equipment to our DPS troopers working on the border. The border isn't secure. Protecting unborn babies. Restoring vocational training in our public schools so that we stop teaching to the test and teach to the child and train our young people to work and to earn a living. Truly standing and embracing free enterprise. Truly opposing unnecessary regulations. And maybe most importantly, being wise with your taxpayer dollars and saying no to more spending and more debt. Because more spending and more debt is not just an economic principle. It's a moral principle. And we have a responsibility to our children. Now, when you go down to Austin and you take a strong conservative approach, you stand in contradiction to the status quo. And let me tell you, the status quo will not lead to a more free Texas. It was Frederick Douglass that said, you will have no polish without friction. Margaret Thatcher said, so you have enemies? Good. You've stood for something. Let me tell you that I have been willing to take stands that sometimes don't make people happy. But I have also formed strong relationships in the legislature.
And that's 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Ogle, 2 minutes to you.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. Am I good? Can you hear me okay? Oops. Okay, now I won't turn it off. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Skip Ogle, and hello to everybody. I want to tell you a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. I've lived and worked in this community for over 15 years. I have worked in many, many organizations that have invested in this community to make it even greater, with folks from across this community whom I think make this community the greatest in the state. I own my own small home building business, I manage a family farm, and I also work for a large employer, Suddenlink. I think there are major challenges facing this community in East Texas today. One of those challenges is the economy. As a small business owner, as a representative of a large employer, I know how detrimental overzealous government regulations can be. The second major challenge to this community, I believe, is protecting our natural resources. I believe we need a representative who can fight for this community to defend what we have. And I want to do that for us in Austin. To be a representative, I think you need a few qualities. One of those is leadership. I think that representative needs to be a leader in the forefront, fighting for our community, not against it. I think the second quality is to be a coalition builder. My faith tells me to work in unity, to be a peacemaker. It tells me that many more times than to carry a sword. I also think that to be all of those, and the third quality is to be accessible to the community. I want to have an office open the day one, when I'm sworn in, to have an office open to you so that you can come in and talk to me about the issues that we have in this community that concern you and regarding the state. That's why I think I'll be the best representative for all of this, because I've got the track record for the past 15 years. I've got the resume that meets all of those. I built a coalition 5 years ago to fight an unfair tax in the Tyler 21 plan.
And that's time. Thank you.
That tax is not there, so thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our first topic of discussion. Again, this is a 15-minute topic of discussion. Because Mr. Schaefer had the first opening statement, Mr. Ogle, you will get this question first, and then we will go from there. Again, try to address the audience as much as possible. Try to keep me out of it if at all possible. I don't want to be in part of this 15 minutes. The state of Texas is a leader in job creation. We're proud of that. However, there are signs, possibly, that our state could be headed in the wrong direction. Signs like rapid growth in spending, an escalation of state debt, and the dependency on federal funds in our state budget. Some numbers for you this morning. According to the Legislative Budget Board documents, between 1990 and 2012, Texas state spending rose 310%, while population growth and inflation totaled only 132%. According to other state documents, state debt escalated 125% over the past 10 years. According to more state and federal documents, Texas ranks number 11 in the country in dependency on federal funds. For the 2014 and 15 biennium budget, federal funds totaled $69 billion, or roughly 35% of the state budget revenue. Texas has not been a donor state since 2008. We take more from the federal treasury than taxpayer pay into the federal treasury. The question is this: what do trends like these mean for the future of Texas? Tell us if you believe this calls for reforms in state government, and if so, outline what those reforms should be. If you believe these indicators simply underscore that we are a growing state, say so, and tell us why these are positive indicators for Texas. Mr. Ogle, to you first.
Thank you. Texas is growing. People want to live here, and I don't blame them. And I want them to come here and live as well as I do and give the same advantages as I've been given. So I want to be able to foster those opportunities for economic growth, to be able to build our economy in Texas and to favor jobs and grow jobs. I've been fortunate to work for a large employer who has brought in 500 additional jobs just in the past 8 years. I know how to make payroll for a small business, and I know the challenges of that. I think Texas faces some great demands. If the figures are true that we double in population, nearly double in population by 2050, we've got some great demands that face us to be able to meet that population growth. Water, transportation, education, all of those are going to be growing features of this economy and growing features of this state, and we need to face those head on. I do think that we need to think outside the box on many of those challenges. But again, I don't want to stop people from coming to Texas. I think it's the greatest state in the nation. I want to be able to foster that growth and bring people here and have the jobs to be able to meet that economy, but also grow Texas as well in the economy. And I think we've got several opportunities to do that. I will tell you, and this is where I'm at, just as a working man and making a living and making a paycheck. I believe right now that there are challenges facing our state budget that we're not facing. The transportation was punted. The issue of transportation was punted this past session till 2015 to deal with that issue. So we don't know what to do with our roads. We don't know what to do with how to maintain our roads at this point. We're just passing by right now. I think we can do better than that. Water. Dallas-Fort Worth is building an 8-foot pipeline to Lake Palestine today. We need more water. We need more lakes. We need more reservoirs. If Lake Dallas is building an 8-foot pipeline to Lake Palestine today, think of the growth that's happening not just there, but also in other communities that around the state. Wichita Falls is on stage 4 water restrictions. We face major challenges in water. We took a good step in this past session to be able to get to build more water, but I think we need to put a priority on that to meet the demand for folks that want to live here. As far as reform, I want to be part of that budget process. I want to be part of that's a challenging process. I know there's a lot of detail to that as a working citizen right now, I may not understand that and will understand that as a legislator, but I will tell you this. When we become a shortfall in education, or when we have a shortfall in water, or whatever else that issue is that's facing us, I struggle with how our representative faced that budget this time with passing and forwarding and voting for oyster research. That's $100,000 a year going to oyster research right now. And I would have opposed that, and I'll let the representative address that, and maybe we can understand that better. But I look forward to be part of that budget process and look how we can trim the budget and stay effective to maintain the growth and still yet be attractive for businesses to be able to locate here in Texas.
The growth in federal spending and debt is a big problem. It's a big problem for everybody in this room. First of all, I think the terminology is important. I don't like using the word federal funds. It's not federal funds, it's our money. Most of it printed and borrowed and sent back to us. Texas has a spending problem. Despite record growth in tax revenue in Texas, we spent way too much money. We don't have good constitutional restraints on spending in the state of Texas. We had almost a 26% growth in the amount of money the state of Texas spent on the budget. That's why I joined a group of Republicans as one of the largest groups of Republicans voting against a budget in many years. I opposed the budget because of the accounting governments, because of the wasteful spending. Let's address the federal money issue for just a second. One of the first things you do to get Texas to where it's not so dependent upon what's happening in Washington is stop chasing money out of Washington. Because every time you send $1 to Texas from Washington, it comes with all these strings attached. It's what's the problem with our health care. It's why we can't manage Medicaid, because we don't have control over it from the federal government. When it comes to issues like transportation, it seems to be that the answer always is, well, we need more taxes. Well, let me tell you, there was more money coming into Austin than ever before. And yet, the current leadership did not have the fortitude to allow a bill to come forward to actually address the issue. Now, we did make some steps on that. We've been blessed by the oil and gas sector, which has grown beyond our imagination. And that tax revenue from the oil and gas sector, that's wonderful. We're going to be allowed to use some of that money for roads. It's not a solution. But remember, folks, there is a way that Austin gets more money without taxes. It's when you all in the economy, who are the ones pulling the wagon, produce more. And when the economy grows, government is blessed. When the economy grows, our roads are blessed. The economy doesn't grow because of government. Government is able to do what it can because of entrepreneurs and people taking risks. Now, I think that when we go back down to Austin, we have got to look at practical solutions. We've got to stop the accounting gimmicks that take things like money for fees for volunteer firemen and use it to certify the budget. We've got to go to zero-based budgeting, where an agency actually looks at its budget and says, this is what we need going forward. Right now, all they do is say, this is what we spent last time, give us a little bit more. Each agency ought to have to justify what it spends each time, just like households do. If the money's not there, then back off. If you don't need more money for equipment, then you shouldn't ask for more money. There's a real moral principle at stake, and Texas is not always being honest with how it spends your money. And that is continuing today, and that's why I opposed directly the accounting gimmicks that are going on. That's why I opposed the budget. And let me tell you, when you oppose the budget down in Austin, you anger the leadership, okay? You don't make it. They did not present a budget that I could live with, that I could come home to you and say, you know, the budget wasn't perfect. And we won't get a perfect budget, but we can get an honest budget. And if there's some things in there you don't like, we'll talk about it. But the budget wasn't honest this time, and it spent too much money. And let me tell you, there is leadership out there that I support. And I can tell you that today, my friend Scott Turner, who came to Tyler a couple of times here recently, many of you have heard him in person. He's a dear friend of mine. Today announced his candidacy for Speaker of the Texas House. And I'm proud to support him. I unequivocally support Scott Turner for Speaker because I believe he will give us a conservative approach that actually will be a way that I can come back home and say, you know, conservative principles, maybe they won or lost, but at least these conservative ideas were let out of committee. At least we have a chance to vote on conservative issues, even if they're controversial. Let's debate them. Let's discuss them. So spending is a big problem. And I do support a new constitutional restraint in Texas that would limit the growth of government to population plus inflation. So as the people get more numerous and as inflation goes up a little bit, government should never be able to grow more than population plus inflation. We don't have that right now in Texas, and that's something that we need.
Mr. Ogle, there's plenty of time left in this particular topic if you'd like to say something else on spending.
Yeah, I think our budget obviously needs reform, and there's always opportunity to save dollars. There's always special interests that are trying to seek additional dollars, grant money, however that comes out of our state budget, and we should be able to fight that. We should be able to stand against that in many ways. I do support the growth of this state, and I do think we're facing great challenges, and I think we have to work together to be able to solve those challenges. Again, I mentioned other cities in this great state don't have the water that we do. We've got to be able to protect those natural resources and defend that, but also work together with other parts of the state to make sure it's a win-win solution, so that Wichita Falls of the other parts of Texas are able to serve the demand of their growing city. Folks, I love this state. I love it as much as you do. I love this community as much as you do. I want to be able to fight for this community down in Austin and to be able to defend what we have, but also to be able to work together to be able to bring about winning solutions for the growth of this great state, and I'm looking forward to that for you.
Matt, you have a response?
Okay, so you mentioned water and how important that is. The pipeline project to Lake Palestine is something that was started back in the 70s. It's been under contractual obligation for many, many years. So when it comes to building coalitions to protect our water going forward, it would be very, very important to have strong relationships with the legislators from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, from Arlington, from Dallas, from Fort Worth. And almost all those Republicans have not only endorsed me, but many of them have come to Tyler to walk blocks for me.
Okay, let's try and stay on spending as much as possible.
Okay, so
again, this topic's on spending.
Let's go back to spending for a minute. You mentioned subsidies and corporate giveaways, special interests. So as I was preparing for this, one of the things that was most egregious that I saw is that your taxpayer dollars are going to fund directly film projects and TV commercial projects in the state of Texas. I'm going to say that again. Your taxpayer dollars are being given to film corporations to do things like movies called Bad Kids Go to Hell, rated R movies even, commercials. And my staff pulled the list, and there's 8 pages of all these different commercials and the special interests that were involved. And as I went through the list, 3 times, suddenly showed up on the list. And so I don't know what's behind that, but here on the list of those benefiting from state subsidies with your tax money and special interests that needs to be cut out is suddenly. I don't know what to make of that. But that's one of the things that we have to address in the state of Texas.
Mr. Ogle, response to that at all?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. Let me just add, I'm very proud of the Suddenlink organization. We've invested heavily in this state and heavily in this community. That said, many of the nonprofit efforts that we do for the great state are either accessed by the governor or leadership in this state asking to run public service announcements across this state. For example, saving water, being efficient in your water use. The Christmas tree ornament, that's something that we run a public service announcement on. We, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, run those ads for free across those channels across Suddenlink. I won't apologize for Suddenlink. We are, this organization, and I'm proud to be part of it, has been a huge investor in this community and also in the state, and brought many, many jobs to this state and more, even more to this community, and I'm very proud of that.
This is what we hear in Austin. All these groups come in and they give us a very good reason. It is always something that is very beneficial to the community. We love it. It's good. It's for water. It's for Christmas ornaments. But then you look and you say, is this what state government should be doing? You know, is that what the private organizations should be doing? Is that what churches and nonprofits should be doing? Why? What right does the state of Texas to have my money, to take my money and give it to someone else in the name of doing something to produce a film? That's what private industry is, folks. And to me, that's where you have to take a strong stand on principle. Say, What you're telling me is a good thing to do, but how you're doing it is not the right way. And I don't have that right to take your hard-earned tax money and use it for somebody else in that manner. That's not what the Texas Constitution calls for.
We have about 90 seconds left on spending. Would either of you like to say anything else on spending before our time's up? Anything at all, we can go on to the next topic. Okay. Now, because the first question started with you, Mr. Ogle, Mr. Schaefer, you'll get the beginning of this second question. According to a variety of polls, most Americans and a large majority of Texans believe that the national health care plan is a disaster. Address what this means for Texas. Contrast the pre-Affordable Care Act state of Texas spending on health and human services and where you believe we are headed as this law continues to be implemented, impacting citizens, employers, and healthcare professionals. And we'd ask you to cite specific reforms and actions that you believe the state legislature can take in regards to that. Mr. Schaefer, you begin.
Before Obamacare was passed, Medicaid, and we know what Medicaid is. It's not Medicare. Medicare is what you've paid into over the years and goes to support people who are 65 and up. Medicaid is primarily for people that are poor, children, and people in nursing homes who can't afford it. Before Obamacare was passed, Medicaid was putting a tremendous burden on the state of Texas. But a part of Obamacare is a huge incentive to get the states to expand Medicaid to people who do not even have to verify their assets to qualify. It's enormously expensive. We've already had some people that have tried to open the door to that in the state of Texas. We've already had large organizations in Texas push for that. Democrats are pushing for that. Some Republicans are listening. I stand in strong opposition to that. One of the answers to the health care funding problem in the state of Texas is to allow market decisions to be made. The answer is not to turn healthcare over to the government. The answer is to allow people to make decisions on routine healthcare and at the same time be compassionate. People who cannot help themselves ought to have a place in our community where they know that they can get help. We can do that. We are a compassionate state, and that's within the proper role of government to do so. Insurance companies ought to be able to compete across state lines. Tell me why Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas can't do business just across the state line in Arkansas. And why can't Blue Cross Blue Shield Arkansas come across the state lines and do business? That competition would benefit us. It would bring prices down. We can allow people to have more of a say in routine health care. And when we do that, when people understand the price, they'll go around and shop around a little bit. How many know about laser eye surgery? Laser eye surgery is a serious procedure if you need to see well, yet it's not covered by insurance companies. So what do the doctors do? They compete based on price. And so what has happened to this fabulous new technology? People have competed for it, and the prices has come down. And not only has the price come down, but the technology and the way they do it has gone up and improved in quality. We can do that for x-rays. We can do that for simple routine things. But that has to be a decision that's pushed back to the private sector. Government solutions in healthcare are going to turn us into Europe. And that's where Barack Obama is headed. And I will fight that with every fiber of my being. I have already taken votes in opposition to that, and I will continue to do so.
Mr. Ogle.
I don't think you're going to find very much difference between Matt and I on this issue. I do not agree with Obamacare. I think it's a constitutional violation of us as Americans. So I do not agree of being forced to have to buy health care insurance. I think that's a choice. If you drive a car, I think you should buy insurance to have to drive that car, and I think that's correct, and I think that's legal. But I don't agree with forced health insurance, the forced health insurance provision. So I think you're going to find very little difference between Matt and I on this. What I will say is that I think we need to stand up for the doctors who are receiving less and less and less from Medicaid and reimbursements, and I think there might be opportunity for that. But I think this is an education process more than anything else, and that's where I think I can think outside the box in many ways and be creative in being able to help Texas. If healthcare is if your health is the greatest issue and we need to take care of you, then we need to provide that health care. If you're handicapped or if there's some type of major issue with you today, we should be able to provide that health care for you in some form or fashion. If you can't afford it, then maybe we can get there in some way. But if you're healthy, then let's promote a healthy Texas. Let's go a step farther and think beyond just health insurance. Let's think about a program or some type of effort of volunteerism of promoting your health, exercise, whatever that is, to move beyond the growing into the stage of having to have health care because we're not taking care of ourselves. For children that are overeating in our schools and beyond, those are all issues that we can educate Texans on and be able to face together and promote education and foster those type of programs. So again, very little difference between our fight against Obamacare. I don't agree with it. I think it's a constitutional violation. But I do think we can step beyond that as a state and promote healthcare in many ways. When we talk about the public-private partnerships that were mentioned earlier, that's exactly what my employer does. It's a public-private partnership where we can step in many ways so that the state doesn't have to spend any money, and we can run at whatever type of programs or commercials for that type of effort. And we're always proud to do that with the great state of Texas.
Any response at all? Skip, anything else you'd like to say before we continue? We've not used much time at all on this particular topic. Is there anything else between either of you? Okay. Topic number 3. And this one will begin with you, Mr. Ogle. Discuss transportation as a core constitutional function of state government. Are we headed in the right direction with funding solutions on transportation? Why or why not? And please cite any trends you see, troubling trends especially, in funding, debt, or eminent domain issues related to transportation, and if you have solutions for those particular issues.
Texas is growing. People want to live here. People want to move here. We've got to be able to provide the demand. We've got to be able to provide for the demand that's coming to this great state, whether it's transportation, water, education. Those are all issues that are going to face the growth in this great state. And transportation specifically, I think that's a struggle right now. But if you look at the books of our transportation, of our highways and our byways that are owned and built by the state of Texas, some guesstimate that is about a $1 trillion asset, maybe a little bit more than that. If you're conservative, say it's a $500 billion asset in this great state. Right now, we're dedicating around $4 billion to maintain and build new roads. We can't get there with that. It doesn't work. So we've got to be able to think creatively how to build those roads. I think there's great partnerships around the state. There's and I will just say, whether you agree or disagree, I think the net RMA is one of those opportunities where you can build a road and have finances outside of the state funding to be able to do that. Do I agree necessarily with building toll roads over there? Absolutely not. I don't want toll roads everywhere across this state, but yet we've got to meet the demand of the growing transportation, the congestion, not just on Broadway here in our community, but the congestion in cities like Houston and Dallas are getting formidable, so much so that it's detracting commerce in many ways. I just read in the paper in the Tyler Telegraph recently that we're looking at a study for a high-speed rail system. I think that's a great opportunity to be able to take the congestion off those roadways in many ways. I think we should look at opportunities also to be able to put trucks on tollways, to force them to pay for those roads in many ways, because they're the ones that are the high capacity in many ways, tearing up those roads much faster than we are as just daily drivers and one or two people in a car. Also, we have the problem in South Texas in the shale formations and in West Texas where we have heavy traffic by the oil truckers. I agree with charging them a little bit extra. They're putting even greater capacity. They're tearing up a lot of roads out there. So let's work with them and make sure that they're reimbursing the state equally and fairly for the damage that they're doing to the state. Do I want to stop oil production? Absolutely not. I want to continue with this great economy that we've got because of oil and gas that these formations are bringing into this great state. But I think there's opportunity to work together, not only in the public sector, but also in public and private partnerships to be able to provide the needs that we have today in transportation.
Mr. Schaefer.
Well, I think we finally found a few more points of disagreement. I have no intention of supporting a new tax on oil companies for what they're doing in the oil fields. You just mentioned raising oil charges for what they're doing. Listen, it's the oil and gas companies that are filling the state treasury right now. They are more than pulling their weight. The sales taxes that their workers are paying when they go to the restaurants and to Walmart is more than pulling their weight. So why should we tax them further? See, that's the exact kind of mentality that the Democrats have. They see an opportunity where some business is being successful, so we need to make them pay a little more. And that's exactly the wrong thing. And I think, Mr. Ogle, it's important to point out that at times you have supported Democrats that have that very mentality. Mark Homer, out here in East Texas, who was a liberal Democrat, was one of the biggest proponents of the Trans-Texas Corridor in East Texas. And this was a gentleman that Mr. Ogle came in with hundreds of his own dollars to help the Democrat beat a conservative Republican. So when it comes to transportation dollars, the first thing you do when you do need roads, because that's the fundamental core of government, and you have more revenue coming into the government than you've ever had before you talk about raising taxes on people, look over here at this new revenue that's coming in because of the economy. Look at what you're spending before you look at what's being taken for taking more from businesses.
Mr. Ogle?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Matt. And yes, I did. I gave to 2 Democrats over my lifetime and working with the legislature. I've given to many Republicans. In fact, I've raised a lot of money for Republicans and nearby neighbors of Republicans here, a lot more than I ever have Democrats. 2 Democrats, and here's the real story. So here's the rest of the story. Both of those Democrats I gave to about $200 apiece after the session was over. In both cases, those Democrats fought for fair business practices. Let me get in the weeds a little bit on that. In 2005, AT&T wanted a bill to provide TV video service across Texas. They got that bill. Unfortunately, they got that bill to be able to provide TV or video service anywhere they wanted to. They could provide it in one block or one neighborhood if they wanted to, whereas the incumbent cable companies had to provide that video service across the whole community. I don't think that's fair. That's not a fair business practice, and we fought that, and we won. It took 7 years to win that battle, but let me just tell you what State Representative Mark Homer did from Paris, Texas. He was the only one that stood at the podium on the floor and said, this is unfair. This is an unfair business practice, and we need to fight this. I was proud of him. I was proud of him stepping up. Do I agree with his platform? Do I agree with some of the liberal views that he has? Absolutely not. I'm conservative. I've always been conservative. I got a track record in this community of being conservative. But yet he stood for business, and he stood for pro-economy and building business. Same thing with Representative Oliveira down in South Texas. Did the exact same thing a few years later to fight for fair business practices. So yes, I am pro-business. I am pro-economy. I want to grow this economy in Texas. And we can do that in a level business playing field where one business does not have an unfair advantage over another business. And I would just pose to the representative, would he also support a pro-business legislation?
So let's go back to Representative Mark Homer that you mentioned.
I'd really rather not, if we could. You brought it up. I let him respond. I'd like to stay with transportation as much as possible. You brought up that particular representative. He responded. Let's stick with transportation if we can.
There's a difference between being pro-business and being pro-free enterprise. See, there's a lot of businesses out there that when it even comes to things like transportation, they want to go down to the legislature and hire lobbyists like Mr. Ogle, who's been a corporate lobbyist for a very long time, and say, we have sort of developed a little niche in the economy, and whether it be transportation or something else, and we want to get a rule passed that keeps the little guy out. That may be pro-shareholder. That may be pro-business for them. That is not pro-freedom. That is not pro-free enterprise. Let me tell you what makes the economy work. It is freedom. It is liberty. Liberty cuts across every political spectrum. Liberty and freedom cuts across Democrat and Republican lines. When people are free to compete in the state of Texas, then we have more money for roads. And that's why we have prospered. But let me tell you, there's always an effort to add more regulations down in Austin. So the answer to the transportation question and where we get more money for roads, and we do need more money for roads, is we've probably already got it. It's probably already sitting on the table, being used for film subsidies and other things. And it's coming from the oil and gas sector. I do not want to raise taxes, as Mr. Ogle does, on oil and gas industry people down in the South Texas, the Eagle Ford Shale, who are using the roads. We want the state of Texas can handle those roads. You keep doing what you're doing, and we'll get out of your way.
Skip, your response?
Been a lobbyist for many years. I've been an advocate for this community in many, many ways. I've been an advocate and I've lobbied for UT Health Northeast beyond my employer. I've advocated for UT Health Northeast. It's a great facility up in the Northeast. I've also advocated for UT Tyler. And most recently in their push for a pharmacy school bill, and I promoted Senator Eltief's bill to get that pharmacy school through. I've advocated in many ways for this community, and yes, I've been a lobbyist. I'm proud of that. I want to be able to take that a step further and be a lobbyist for this community and be able to go down to Austin and advocate for this community in Austin and defend and protect us, but also promote this great community down there, not be isolated as we are now. I can tell you when a university comes to me, and this is pro-economy, this is pro-growth, but when a university comes to me and asks to be able to pass a pharmacy school bill, I want to be able to shepherd that bill through the legislature. I promise you that I would build those coalitions to be able to do that. As far as economy, I agree. I totally agree. I'm against toll roads. I don't want toll roads. But yet that's a partnership that seems to be working in some communities and some areas. Everything needs to be on the table, folks. Everything needs to be on the table. Don't be fooled by this. Please listen. Everything has to be on the table when we discuss roads and highways for this great state. Because right now we don't have the money to even maintain those roads. We've got to build more roads to be able to keep up with the growth. And I think we've got that opportunity. I agree with Matt. I agree that we should look at the budget first and foremost to be able to dissect that budget in many ways to save as much dollars and nickels and dimes as we can. And yes, $100,000 per year for the next 10 years is pennies in the bucket for oyster research. But can we put that money in some other way towards education, to educate our children and be able to grow our children a little bit better than oysters right now? Let's look at our priorities and see what's most important for us. Is oysters important for us? No. I think our children have a higher priority. I think our roads have a higher priority because right now we don't have the budget to be able to keep up with our roads and highways.
If you have a specific transportation response, man, I'll hear it from you, but if not.
That's good. Yeah. He just mentioned, he used the phrase that we hear a lot in Austin, is we got to keep all options on the table. Let me tell you, when they say that in Austin, that means more taxes. So my direct question to you, Mr. Ogle, is do you hold an option open as raising taxes for transportation?
That is not my option. Please don't misunderstand that, and please don't listen to the rhetoric, folks.
My question is
I'll address. Thanks, Matt. My option is not additional taxes. That's not how you grow an economy. That's not how I'm successful in business. That's not how the businesses that I've been employed with are successful, by being taxed more. Folks, we don't think we have a state income tax. We have a franchise tax that is taxed on every business in Texas that makes over $1 million. Yes, we've got an income tax in Texas. That just doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. But that said, if we tax more, then it's going to be more oppressive. No, I am not in favor of additional taxes. I will fight against additional taxes. But yet we need to look at every opportunity that we can have, everything that we can look at. I don't want to tax the oil industry. They've been very successful in this state, but yet they are heavy users. So are the major truckers, major users of our highways and byways. Let's just look and see if we've got a partnership there. Let's just open the door and see if we can work with them to be able to develop some type of funding sources beyond relying on just taxpayers, relying on just you and I to be able to pay for our highways and byways. There's opportunity out there, I promise you. Just in the same way that my employer has been partnering with the state of Texas in public service announcements or anything else. And I don't know what these films are. I have no idea what we're talking about over here, but I'll certainly look into that. We are not a grant taker from my employer, but the issue is not about my employer. The issue is about me. And here's where I'm at. I'm conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. I've always been a fiscal conservative, and I want to be able to fight that fight for us in Austin. I've got the resume, I've got the track record in this community to prove that. And yes, I think Tyler is growing, and I want to see Tyler keep growing. But right now, we've got so much congestion on Broadway, South Broadway, that if we open up the new malls, if we open up all the other development on South Broadway, guess what happens? We've got so much growth down there that now we're really going to have problems on Highway 69 South. Okay, we can look beyond that and work together with private development to be able to offset that demand. And I think there's opportunity out there, and I think there's developers that will step up to the plate and help out.
Matt, you've got about 60 seconds left on transportation on this topic if you want it.
I was just thoroughly confused by your answer, because you started out by saying, I want to charge more to the oil and gas companies that are down in South Texas for using the roads. Then you said we've got to keep all options on the table, which everybody knows that they're talking about raising the gas tax. And then you say you're not for taxes. And then you say you give money to liberal Democrats who definitely want to raise taxes. So I was confused about that answer.
All right, our final question. We've got 15 minutes left on this particular question before our closing statements. In the Texas Tribune and UT polls over the past several years, and by the way, Matt, you get this question first, because topic 3 went to Skip first, so this goes to Matt first. In the Texas Tribune and UT polls over the past several years, Texas voters consistently cite illegal immigration as a high-level concern. Discuss your view of what the state's role is in addressing illegal immigration, and think about it from the perspective of the oath of office you will have to take if you win re-election or if you win this race for a first time. Also, in your response, consider these two statements from state and federal officials from June of last year, as quoted in an investigative report from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Dallas-Fort Worth has become a key command and control center for Mexican drug cartels for moving drugs and people across the country. And Stephen McCraw, director of Texas DPS, said that Mexican cartels constitute the greatest organized crime threat to the state. That's a quote from Mr. McCraw. Matt, we'll start with you.
I've got Mr. McCraw on speed dial on my phone. I spent 2 days down at the border here recently. I spent a full day with the Texas DPS troopers on the river. And I have to tell you that even I was shocked, and I thought I was in a position to be pretty knowledgeable. I was shocked about how much of a problem it truly is. And I spent a day also with the Texas Border Volunteers, South Texas ranchers who are being overrun, which in a situation I can only describe as being an invasion. Just in Brooks County alone, north of McAllen, Texas, there are over 500 illegal aliens, I'm told, coming across every day. 65% of them are coming from places other than Mexico. And let me tell you, the character of some of these people is what's going to change our culture in a way that we don't want. We are not full in this country. We want people that want to come here and work and live and be among us. We welcome them. But there's no order to what's happening on the border, on the river. There's no order. We need sense brought to this. I hear politicians say all the time, and Mr. Ogle is saying it right now on the radio, we're going to secure the border now. That's the phrase. Let me tell you, if you spend a day down there, you will know that that is not going to happen. The reality is much more grim. There are hundreds and hundreds of miles that are wide open. The best thing the state of Kentucky can do right now is give much more resources to our Texas DPS troopers who are working on the river, along the river, and above the river. Give them more resources to stop them there so that they don't come into our communities with drugs, with disease, some of them, because they're coming from places where there's no vaccinations. It's a serious problem. My oath is to uphold the rule of law, even when that's not politically correct. And that means we have to stand against municipalities, cities in the state of Texas that turn a blind eye to illegal immigrants that are violating the law. It's catch and release. And let me tell you, the Border Patrol has turned their back on us. They have deployed significant resources 60 miles north of the border when they ought to be down on the river where they're coming across. There are places where they can come across the border in 90 seconds and get onto a paved road in the state of Texas. I have experience in the military that informs my understanding of this situation. I've seen what's happening down there, and this is almost has the feel of a military operation, and I don't use those words lightly. We need people who understand the problem, and I'm gaining a better understanding of it, and I'm going to continue to do so. So what can the state of Texas do? Common sense right now. Do more to secure the border, but it's not going to happen in a month. It's not going to happen in a year. Heck, the legislature's not even going to meet until next year to get more funding. So I just think it's fundamentally misleading to say we're going to secure the border now. It just belies a lack of understanding of what's really happening. There are common sense things that we can do, but I'm worried about the content of the character that some of these people that are coming across. They're criminals. They're bringing drugs. They're leaving women and children behind. They're gang members. And all this is documented. I'm not telling you something that's fantasy. It's there. People in this room have been down there. And I'm going to continue to talk about that. And I'm going to do so unapologetically. And let me tell you something. Who we put into leadership in the Texas House is going to be critical in how this issue is addressed. So I would ask Mr. Ogle who you are going to support for Speaker of the Texas House.
Mr. Ogle, to you.
Thank you on the immigration issue, and I want to talk about that for a minute. This is news to me that Scott Turner's running. I'm really glad he's running, but however, this is very early on and very premature to talk about the speaker's race and who we're going to support because we don't know who's going to be in that race when it comes time to vote for that in the next session. But I encourage candidates and hopefully conservative candidates to run for Speaker of the House. That said, illegal immigration, let's talk about that for a minute. I'm not for illegal immigration. It's that simple. It's illegal. I was very proud of our former Representative Leo that fought hard for years against illegal immigration, to try to pass bill after bill after bill to limit illegal immigrations, to stop sanctuary cities. And yet we hear Matt talk about this in such glorified terms and the rhetoric that we hear, but yet there was no bill submitted by Matt on illegal immigration to try to thwart this in any way. Not that I would expect that to pass, because none of Matt's bills did except for one, and that's a real issue, folks. I won't digress to that, but thank God we had State Representative Travis Clardy out of Nacogdoches to carry the pharmacy school bill for us for our own University of Texas at Tyler, because that's how we got that pharmacy school today. That said, I think we need to stop sanctuary cities. I think sanctuary cities need to be penalized for the efforts that they're doing out there. I totally disagree with that. But yet, even more importantly, how do we seal the border? The legislature took a great step this last session and increased salaries, increased some pay for Department of Public Safety to be able to rotate in and out of that area to secure the border. Right here, I talked to Ashton Orvitz many months ago about being a Minuteman. Sorry to call you out, Ashton, but we talked many months ago about being how his Minuteman effort and to stand on the border to help secure that. I think we need to promote volunteerism in this state, not just for border security, but this gets into education too, and I wish we had time to talk about that in a minute. But if we can get volunteers just to come in and rotate in that area, just as Ashton's doing and many, many more, I think we should promote that. I think we should be able to market that and educate Texans who want to protect Texans to go down and help secure our border. There are many around here who don't even know about that program, and I'm very proud of it. After I heard about it, I was astounded by that program. I think we've got opportunity to encourage more attention on the border. I think we have to, folks, we have to seal the border. That's got to be a priority for us. Can it be easy? Can we do it next month? Can we do it in 6 months? Probably not. No, I agree with that. But I'm not giving up hope. We've got to go down and protect that. If we don't, the landowners, the farmers, the ranchers, we're giving up on them. We've got to stay out front on this issue. We've got to track illegal immigrants. We've got to prohibit that in some form or fashion beyond what we're doing now. We can't just leave it up to the federal government. We know what the federal government's doing. They're not helping us. We know that. But we can step up as Texans, and we are, and we can more.
Matt, back to you.
Let me address the pharmacy school. I led the hearing on the pharmacy school in the House. I had a positive role in it the entire way. I worked hard for it. I supported it. and my efforts were positive, and the leadership that was involved with that will tell you that. So if someone's searching for failure in the midst of success, I'm sorry, but the record will stand for itself. The pharmacy school is a good thing. My influence was positive, and there are many people that are close to that situation will tell you just the same thing. Now, if you've got a radio ad telling people that to secure the border now, and then you're telling us here that that's not possible, then let me finish. Then what is it, okay? And if you had spent a day at the border with the Texas Border Volunteers, do you know that the group that Ashton's working with is not the Minutemen? It's someone else. And so my question to you is, one, how can you faithfully and honestly tell the public to secure the border now, if in fact you can?
Thank you for the question, Matt. I can tell you that has got to be a priority on securing our border. That is an economic disaster right now. With our president promoting some type of amnesty program, I think it even attracts even more, and we've got to stop that. How do we stop it? We've got to be. I'm sorry. I'll address the question. So we've got to stop that. And when we secure the border now, let's put that as a priority right now to secure the border. Let's make that a top priority. And that's what I would ask of Matt. Why wasn't that a priority in legislation for him this past session? If he's so passionate about it now, why wasn't there any bills that he tried to promote during this past session? There were none. So let's step up. I will promote securing the border. I will promote sealing our border. And I promise you, in the next legislative session, I will file legislation to stop sanctuary cities. I promise you that. And we'll work together to be able to do that. I'll work with other legislators to be able to do that. Representative Alan Fletcher is a leading representative fighting this fight now. And he struggles with the sanctuary cities that are out there today. We can work together to be able to fight this. And that's what I ask for, is to sit down, figure out the solutions, and be able to take that down to Austin and fight that battle together.
Mr. Ogle, have you spent a single day on the border?
Yes.
With who?
Family and friends, I would say.
Okay, so let me address the question.
As a representative, I was not able to go down and infringe on the DPS and tour with them.
Anybody can go visit the Texas Border Volunteers. They're all civilians. So let me address your very questions, why there were no bills I could support for immigration. Why is that? And the answer is that leadership in the Texas House did not allow those types of bills to come out of committee. And no, I didn't file those bills because I deferred to senior members who've been working on the problem a long time. When you take on a big hot topic issue, you don't always have to do that as a freshman. There's a lot of good conservative Republicans who've done work on the issue, like Leo did before. And let's go back to Leo. Leo did do a lot of work on that, and he always had bills in committee. They never got out of committee in the Texas House. So I'm going to go back to the question. The issue of the speaker's race is something that is not new, and it's very important to the people in this community. And it's not a question you should be surprised by, or a question that we have to wait until next year to decide. There's two candidates out there right now. Speaker Strauss and Scott Turner has filed for speaker this morning. So just throw that back to you, because that affects immigration, transportation, the pro-life issue. Let me go back to the issue of speaker. Do you know why we couldn't get a pro-life bill passed? Because the leadership of the Texas House wouldn't let it happen. And only because the governor of the state of Texas is truly pro-life did he say, when the legislative session is over, you're not going home. And in the first special session, they delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. And then finally it took a second special session. So, folks, the battle lines have been drawn. Battleground Texas has been happening for years. The effort to turn Texas red. There was a battleground East Texas when Kirby Hollingsworth, Christian conservative Republican, came within 200 votes of beating Mark Homer. And after that, Skip Ogle comes in with $550 of his own money to help the Democrat. So if you have a proven conservative record, how come when we go back and look at your record, there are times where you are supporting liberals. Mark Homer is the one that put forward an amendment to allow human cloning. And Texas Right to Life put this mailer into that district on behalf of Kirby Hollingsworth.
Let's try to stay with immigration.
You took out your wallet and gave money to Mark Homer, the Democrat.
All right, Skip, you've got 2 minutes left on this, and there will be no response time. I'm sorry, so that you've got the last 2 minutes on this question.
Thank you. Matt, it's ironic that you're criticizing the former state representative Leo Berman for not being able to get any bills out of committee, because that's exactly your track record this past session. The pharmacy school,
Let's try to stay on transportation, please. It's the last 2 minutes we've got on topic. Let's try to stay on transportation.
absolutely. The pharmacy school bill that was filed, a pro-economic driver for our community, died in committee. We had to rely on the state representative out of Nacogdoches to be able to carry that bill. I disagree with that approach. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, my approach will be different in Austin. I'm conservative and a fiscal conservative, but yet I know how to build coalitions in this community. And I want to be able to take that coalition building down to Austin and be able to work together, to be able to fight together to defend our community, and also be able to get positive and pro-economic drivers through for this community, like the pharmacy school. That said, illegal immigration is a major issue. We have to focus on securing our borders. That's got to be a priority. It's an economic killer to our hospitals today to have to take care of whoever walks in the door, whether you're a citizen or not a citizen. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to the hospitals that have to pay for that, the government that has to subsidize it in many ways. We can do better than that. We can step up to secure our borders even more. Yes, there's a lot to learn, and I look forward to learning so many different things. And as a legislator, however, as my experience and my resume proves in this community, it's for this community. It's for the economic driving of this community. I agree with Matt. Businesses that succeed add to the economic growth, the driving growth of this state, of this community, and of this nation. Let's not detract from that. Let's not take away from that. As far as supporting anybody, I'll work with Democrats, I'll work with Republicans if they line up
Do you have
with our
anything left on
conservative
immigration?
principles, with our conservative principles, but yet Matt is complaining about supporting Democrats, and yet Matt signed on with Democrats on many bills. House Bill 259 relating to electioneering, that was full of Democrats.
Mr. Ogle,
on that.
I'd ask you to continue to talk on immigration if you have anything else. If not, I'm going to have to stop you.
And it gets there. And yet we've got this rhetoric that comes back at me. And so, folks, watch. Please look at the website. His facts speak for themselves. They didn't get through. So when we talk about transportation, when we talk about issues relating to highways and byways in the state, who are we going to be able to rely on? Who can take
Anything on immigration, Mr. Ogle, I'm going to have to stop you. Right now, anything on immigration, I'm going to have to stop you.
One more. On border security. Who can we rely on? Who can we rely on for border security?
That's time. Okay, thank you very much. All right, that is the end of our topics on this. That's 4 of 4 topics, and we have time left for 2 3-minute closing remarks. And Mr. Ogle, you're going to begin first because you got to open second. In these 3-minute closing remarks, there will be no chance for you to respond to the other candidate. At the end of the 3 minutes, I will let you finish the sentence, not the thought, the sentence that you are on, and then I'm going to stop you after 3 minutes. There will be no further time for either candidate after that 3 minutes. Mr. Ogle, your first 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think highly of Matt. I think Matt's a very good person. We both go to the same church. So enough of this throwing mud at one another. But here's the facts. We both believe very strongly in what we believe in. I believe in a very strong community. I believe in our community first, in defending what we have here, taking what we have successfully here in Tyler and taking that down to Austin and fighting for those same rights down in Austin. Economic growth. We have successful businesses right here in Tyler. We incubate businesses in this community through our educational programs, through TJC, through UT Tyler. We can foster that even greater and promote that in many ways that's not taken advantage of across the state. To be able to bring businesses to this state and be able to be an economic driver even greater than what we are today. And hopefully that pays for, with successful businesses bringing people buying, selling into this marketplace, to be able to build more highways from that. I'm a fiscal conservative, always have been. But yet I love this community. I've got deep respect for this community. I've got a great reverence for this community. Beyond the mud throwing, beyond the political rhetoric, folks, I love this community very much. And I want to fight for this community down in Austin. I want to take this to the next level and fight for us. Not just one group, not one special interest, by the way, that paid almost $90,000 a special interest group to Matt's campaign. Tyler's not for sale, y'all. Tyler is not for sale. And I will stand for this community in many, many ways. I love and respect this community. When we talk about issues like transportation, education, let's think outside the box. Let's market, let's promote volunteers to support our school systems. Let's foster mentors that can come in and help our kids one-on-one to make those kids feel even more special, and build them up in character and build their esteem so they know that they can be successful. Successful kids, strong, successful kids make strong, successful business people. And strong, successful business people make for a great economy. And we need to foster that and grow that in so many different ways. I want to thank you for the opportunity, and ladies and gentlemen. And I want you to know, when you walk away from this today, I want you to know one thing. I have a deep respect for you. I have a deep respect for this community. I've got a deep reverence for East Texas. And I want to be able to fight for that in Austin. And we'll do it successfully together. Together, we'll put our community first. Thank you.
Matt, final 3 minutes of yours.
The simple truth is that a number of the pieces of legislation I've worked on not only got out of committee, but were signed by the governor. So you can go to my website right now. You can look on there. We have a document that shows what the bill number was, when it passed, and a link to the House Journal record. Whether it had been a law to allow members of the military to vote in a combat zone electronically that I worked on because of my own experience, whether it been a bill to cut regulation on a small business industry that was signed by the governor, whether it be the times that I stood up on the House floor, and sometimes, I'll say it single-handedly, stopped more regulations. I can tell you that I was effective. Not every bill I passed, I presented, made it through. That's the way the legislature works. Nobody's does, especially freshmen. It doesn't happen that way. But let me tell you, I'm proud of my record. I was very effective at times. And I can learn. I can go forward with more knowledge. But let me tell you, what gives me hope is that God is sovereign, and there are freedom-loving people here in East Texas, because I believe freedom is what's good for business. Freedom is what's good for families. Freedom is what's good for babies. And let me tell you, that is something that you can look at my record. You can look at my life and what I've done and the areas I've worked and the things I've stood for. And you know what you're going to get when you get Matt Schaefer. And is somebody somewhere down the line not going to like something I say? Probably so. But I'll do so with love. And I have friends in the legislature that I've developed and who are supporting me even today. Representative Simpson's here, and others. It is important to have coalitions. It is important to protect East Texas water. But most important, it's important to hold true to your principles in the face of a lot of pressure when you're down in Austin. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you, because I know you don't just work on my behalf at times, but each one of you talks to neighbors, works for other candidates, that is out there unapologetically standing for conservative principles. Folks, I'm one of you. I started out as one of you. Trust me, I've been one of you for a long time. I just got tired of yelling at the TV. And so did you. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. I'm going to keep fighting.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's debate. Again, it takes a great deal of time, of sacrifice, of courage, and preparation to do what these men are doing. So one more round of applause for both of our candidates today. Thank you again.